What was your reaction and your view of the forecasts?
Well, they're pretty sobering, and they tell us that we have an enormous challenge ahead. But the first point is that we're a long way from getting home from this disaster that we're in economically, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And to have a budget deficit projected this year of $185 billion is just sort of mind-blowing. But really, I don't think the government had much alternative. It's had to spend to prop up the economy. The trick now is to switch from playing defence to trying to play offence and to try to rebuild our way out of this. And that's why, leading up to the October budget, the government's got to think bold, and it's got to think big, and it's got to think that it's going to have to, slaughter some sacred cows here to get us back on track economically. We don't have any option but to do that. For example, Pete, the OECD this week has told us that we have the world's highest minimum wage again. So we're stuck in a high wage economy. So we need to work our way out of it with things like tax reform, skills and training, regulatory reform, IR reform. These are the only ways we're going to build jobs, and that's what we need to do.
Well, you're going to need the unions to be flexible on that, right?
Oh, absolutely. And they have shown some flexibility up until now, but there are some real signs that that sort of friendship is sort of coming to an end. There's their call for businesses who aren't on JobKeeper to sort of go back to the old ways. Just because you don't have a 30% reduction in turnover doesn't mean that you're doing well. And there's a lot of businesses out there struggling, and with JobKeeper coming off, sort of the best estimates are about a third to a half of businesses might go under. That's a pretty sobering thought.
When you say bold and big, what are you thinking specifically there, Innes? I mean, is GST got to be on the table here, an increase to it? Stamp duty elimination just about to be replaced by land tax, and Dominic Perrottet has talked about that, but all the states have got to be on board, right? And the federal government's the one taking all the political risk.
Well, absolutely. A national cabinet meets today, so you've got to think that today is the first step towards building the future. We have obviously got the health issues to deal with, but we also have the economy to deal with, and the economic impacts and the psychological impacts on people from not having jobs and not having opportunities is enormous. So we need all the governments to be involved. What are we thinking about here? You just mentioned tax reform. Well, 1/3 of that increase in deficit is because we've had declining tax revenues, GST, income tax, company tax. So we need to rethink how we've operated in the past. So as you said, GST has to be on the table. The way states tax have to be on the table. Payroll tax needs to be on the table from the states. We just basically need to get a blank sheet of paper out and start again.
How do you sell that to the public, Innes?
Well, you sell it to the public, Pete, by saying if we don't take big, bold steps now, our recovery is going to be at least a decade. History tells us that once you go into a recession, which is what we're in now, it takes you a decade to get your unemployment level back to what it was pre-recession. So that's about 5%. So that's, we're stuck with high unemployment for a long time unless we move quickly and boldly, as I said. And that's how you have to sell it to the public. We have to create jobs. We have to create the conditions here for jobs. We have to create a fair and competitive society out of this. And this is, I think, as I've said, yesterday, this is a terrible opportunity this burning platform has given us to remake the economy of Australia and to make it better.
Is 9.25% unemployment, is that ambitious? That's the rate that's forecast for December this year. I mean, and that's banking on the fact that there's not going to be another shutdown.
Well, think of it this way. That 9.25% is the official number. I think anyone sort of who works in this area knows that's not the real number. It's up closer to 15, 16%. When you take out people who've fallen out of the job market, people who are still on government programs and the like. So you think about it at about 15, 16%, and then you double that to get what would be the youth unemployment rate. So that'd be 30% youth unemployment, 1 in 3 young people unemployed. That's really what it amounts to.
That's frightening.
So is it realistic? Yeah, it's probably in an official number realistic, but but numbers don't often tell you the true story about what's happening in people's lives.
Just finally, we've got about 30 seconds in us, but PricewaterhouseCoopers says we won't get to net zero debt until 2060. Is that what you think?
Well, I'm hoping we can get back to net zero debt in my lifetime, but 2060 is pushing it. So we need to work quickly. But look, we're building up some astronomical debt here, and you'd have to say we have to. But now that we have to work very quickly to get it down, or else not just the next generation, it's the one after that, and the one after that will be paying it off.